So this being the second Sunday of Advent, the season of Advent, is a time to let go of the past and what has worked before and to try new things. I thought I'd try preaching this way today. It was just a couple of Sundays ago that Connie Young said, you know, Daniel, you really should just do stand-up. So, fist bump. I'm not going to do stand-up exactly today, but maybe I'll channel a little bit of that energy. Who knows? A little televangelist, maybe. Anyway, when I was living in San Francisco back in the 90s, in the Mission District, I wasn't exactly hip, but I was sort of hip adjacent, you could say. I knew my share of folks with lots of piercings and tattoos, and some of them were involved in this crazy thing where every Labor Day weekend they would pile into trucks and vans with a bunch of their friends and drive up to this desert in Nevada and set up this little town for the weekend. And they would build these little structures, little encampments along with their tribe and offer some kind of food or massages or mind-bending drugs or something that they thought other people there in the community would want. And then also over the course of the 3 days, they would build this giant structure in the shape of a human being out of wood, and then on the final night, they would burn it. Burning Man was what they called it, and you may have heard of this because, well, it has since, like so many things, become sort of commercialized, and now, you have sort of wealthy Burning Man tourists who drive up there in their air-conditioned rented RVs, and it's kind of like going to a bohemian hipster Disneyland for Labor Day weekend. And a few years ago, the dean of our Trinity Cathedral in Sacramento started going to Burning Man along with some of the other clergy from the diocese, and that just proved this axiom that I've come to believe in over the years, which is, you know that something was really cool 20 years ago if it's been embraced by the Episcopal Church. Anyway, the Pharisees and the Sadducees go out to the Jordan to be baptized by John the Baptist because everybody else is doing it. Something is happening out there. People are going in great throngs from Judea and Jerusalem and the region around the Jordan to go across the Jordan to the other side into the wilderness, where this crazy man wearing wearing clothing made of camel hair and a leather belt like the prophet Elijah did, hint, hint, to be baptized and confess their sins. And so they go out to be baptized too, although Matthew doesn't say that they went out to confess their sins, interestingly enough. So anyway, I've been thinking about them. They're sort of like maybe the Burning Man tourists who aren't really going out there to experience some kind of new way of being in community, some new way of experiencing intimacy with others, going out into the wilderness to sort of rebuild something from scratch. We don't really know why they're going out there, but John is not impressed by their motivations. In fact, he says to them, "Woe to you, brood of vipers! Who told you to flee from the wrath to come?" Now, they may not have even known that that's what they were doing, fleeing from the wrath to come. They may have just thought they were getting on the baptism bandwagon. Well, we know the answer to the question that John asks. It's the outsiders. It's the prophets. Those who speak in the name of the outcast and the poor, and the widows and the orphans. They're the ones whose warnings are recorded in the scriptures, who have been saying to Israel again and again and again over the centuries, you must repent. You got to stop what you're doing. It's not working. You got to try something different and go back to brass tacks. You have to go out, say, to the wilderness, like your ancestors did when they fled slavery in Egypt and wandered there for 40 years with God, learning how to trust God, how to depend completely and solely on God, so that when you cross the Jordan and come into the land that I have promised to give you, you can create a society of justice, where you're not concerned only for yourselves, how to get ahead, but you think about your neighbor. You think about what's good for others, what's good for everyone. Maybe a better analogy than the wealthy Burning Man tourists for the Pharisees and Sadducees in today's gospel story would be the United States delegation to the COP27 climate conference in Egypt. So we sent our delegation along with 600 lobbyists from the fossil fuel industry to the COP27 climate conference to do what we always do, which is to say that it's China's fault, and we're not going to do anything until China does. And we hung out there with the fossil fuel industry lobbyists and tried to think of ways that we could pretend to be doing something about climate change while at the same time investing further in fossil fuel development, continuing with our plans to extract more fossil fuels from the ground, and perhaps come up with some contrived ideas like, I don't know, developing some massive industrial infrastructure to suck carbon dioxide out of the air, which would also be highly profitable for corporate industry in the future. Now, I'm not going to say that nothing good happened at the COP27 climate conference, because for the first time, the United States delegation and some of the folks from the other wealthy countries in the world were willing to admit that there is this thing called loss and damage resulting from the heating of the planet due to the concentration of gases in the atmosphere. We admitted that people and places are getting hurt. And we had to admit it because the outsiders were there. And they were insisting that people are getting hurt. We are getting hurt. We live in the places where the sea is submerging our islands that we and our ancestors have lived on for millennia. We live in the places that are getting battered again and again by cyclones and hurricanes that are coming with a force and a regularity that we've never seen before. We live in the places where our crops are failing year after year after year due to storms and drought. We live in the places where heat waves go on for weeks with temperatures of 110, 115, 120 degrees day after day after day. And of course, we know that even in our own country, it's the poor who are suffering from climate change. When we have wildfires here in Sonoma County, it's terrible for all of us. The air is bad for all of us. Some of us have to evacuate, which is a big pain in the butt. And some of us even lose homes. But if we're wealthy enough, we can get out, and we have some place where we can go, even if it's a hotel we have to pay for, and we have homeowners insurance, and we can, rebuild. And it takes time, and you got to deal with the hassle of the insurance company. But the people who die, who burn alive in their mobile homes, are the old, and the disabled, and the poor. People who have to leave their homes and will never return, will never rebuild, who may end up on the streets of Oakland or San Francisco. We know who they are. So, when the prophets say repent, we don't like to hear that message because we think it is really just about us. We think that they're saying, God is coming for you, which is true. But God is not just coming for you, God is also coming for me and for everyone else. And that's good news. That's the best news we could ask for. Now, it means that some things are going to get burned away. It's interesting to me that John, out there in the wilderness, living on locusts and wild honey, talks to these people from Judea and Jerusalem in terms of agricultural practices. So, when white people came to California, they saw this incredibly abundant landscape and all these people kind of leisurely having everything that they needed. And it pissed them off, to be blunt. And it was, in fact, one of the ideological justifications that they used for exterminating those people, which was that they're just eating what the land provides. They aren't doing anything to deserve it. They aren't improving it in any way. They aren't cutting stuff down. They aren't, packaging it up and sending it to the market and selling it for money. They're just, go down to the river and there's so many fish they can practically just reach in and grab one. What they didn't realize, of course, was this was a intensively managed landscape. That the people who are here were taking care of it in a way that made it even more abundant than it would otherwise have been. And one of the main ways that they did that was that they set fires. And for 100 years or more now, white people have been systematically suppressing every fire that starts in California. And we now know that that was a really bad idea, because when a fire does start, the trees are so densely packed together and there's so much underbrush and dead grass built up and whatever, that the fire quickly just explodes out of control. But this using fire to make the land abundant isn't just something that Native Americans did. They did it in Israel in ancient times. So if a tree isn't bearing good fruit, well, you burn it down. And you put the ashes on the ground to fertilize the trees that are bearing fruit. And when you harvest your wheat, after you winnow out the wheat and gather it into your granary, you take the chaff and the straw and you burn it and you put it out on the field so that the next cycle of growth will be more abundant. Anyway, so that's what God coming for us is like. Yes, it may be hard. There may be things that we think are important that will burn up in the process. But it's only for the sake of the new creation. The new creation that God wants to make of us. And one is coming, says John the Baptist, who will baptize you with Holy Spirit and fire. The kind of fire that is God's own presence. And that is what we're afraid of, I think. You know, says in the Bible, the beginning of wisdom is the fear of the Lord. In Isaiah today, we hear that the promised branch from the dead stump of Jesse, the coming king of Israel, delights in the fear of the Lord. And, we just hate that. The fear of the Lord. Oh, my God, I don't want to be afraid of God. I want a God who's cozy and cuddly and nice to me. And that's because we're afraid of the wrath of God. We're afraid of the punishment of God. We're afraid of the judgment of God. But the Bible doesn't talk about that. The Bible says the beginning of wisdom is the fear of God. Of God. That's what's really scary. I mean, think about the most beautiful sunset you've ever seen in your life. And there's something even more beautiful than that. Even more awe-inspiring than that. Even more meaningful than that experience that you had looking at that sunset. And that something is coming for you. And it wants something for you. That's the scariest part of all. It wants to come down on you with a fire of life and set you ablaze for the new creation, to burn away everything in you that does not bear fruit and fertilize the new creation with you. And that, my friends, is terrifying.